Just wanted to say kudos to you for posting the video that you did in regards to the rule changes for the 2013 World's Toughest. Every downside and negative that you touched on are the exact same points that I myself have been griping about ever since I received my email indicating that the World's Toughest for 2013 would be an open registration for anyone who wanted to participate. Uh, it's something that I've been griping about to all of my friends and anyone who has asked whether or not I would be competing in a Tough Mudder this year. Last July I did compete in my first Tough Mudder up in Vermont, and upon completing the race I realized that I could have prepared myself a lot better physically, and as such I was determined to train my ass off so that I could qualify for World's Toughest, because I felt that after that Vermont race I could have done a hell of a lot better. So I did train my ass off and was going to participate in the Tough Mudder in Maryland a couple of months later in September, but the Day 2 event was canceled due to ill-advised planning on the part of the town where it was located. That's another story in and of itself. Logistically, they just weren't able to handle the influx of people who were coming into the town for the race, so they shut down Day 2. Needless to say, I was pretty crushed about that, because I had worked really hard for a good 4 to 6 weeks, and I was also getting ready to prepare for my first ever marathon in January of 2013, so I had decisions to make as to whether or not I would transfer my registration to another Tough Mudder event by the end of the calendar year 2012, or just postpone it until this year 2013. I decided that there was no way I was not going to compete in a Tough Mudder, before 2012 ended, because I was determined to qualify for World's Toughest. So what I did was I took a week off from my training, let my body recover, and then I just busted hump, doing 2 days of circuit training, 3 days of weightlifting, and beginning my marathon training. So I was running 3 days a week, as well as lifting 3 days a week, and doing a boot camp style workout 2 days a week. I began that process, I believe it was the week of September, I think 16th or 23rd, 2012, and prepared myself for the October 20th Tough Mudder event held in New Jersey at the Raceway Park, where they hold the World's Toughest every year. All that hard work and preparation, my workouts, my nutrition, it all paid off, because I managed to complete the course in 2 hours and 5 minutes, and I qualified for World's Toughest 2012. Unfortunately, I did not participate because I was, again, in the middle of training for my first marathon, and knowing the grueling nature of a 24-hour Tough Mudder, I did not want to risk injuring myself as I prepared for my first marathon that would be a couple of months out, because I knew that when I would get on the course I would leave it all out there, and nothing but my best effort would be acceptable. So again, I share all of your sentiment as far as individuals who may not take preparing for this type of a race seriously, just littering the course, clogging it up when you get to the obstacles, just really disappointed in Tough Mudder headquarters for their decision to make this an open registration race. I read their comments in response to your video, and I can understand their perspective in stating that since the Tough Mudder is about camaraderie, it's not about qualifying times or seeing who can complete it the fastest, so therefore they want to try to make the participation in the World's Toughest as transparent as possible. But that being said, it just doesn't seem to mesh correctly with the fact that you're taking an already difficult obstacle race that if somebody is ill prepared for, they're not going to complete, or they're just not going to be able to move with everybody else who is prepared for it. And now those same individuals may forego participating in a regular Tough Mudder that could take them anywhere from 2 to 4 to 6 hours to complete, and now they get the idea that, well, I'm going to give a try at the world's toughest and see how I do there. And that's not what it's about. The world's toughest is about taking the best of the best from each Tough Mudder event and bringing them together to put them through that 24-hour challenge. When I received the email about the rule change, I was very disappointed and upset to the point that I decided that I'm not going to participate in a Tough Mudder event this year. Instead, I'm going to focus my efforts and energy on preparing for another marathon, hopefully the same marathon that I ran this past January, which was the Walt Disney World Marathon in Orlando, Florida. It was my first ever marathon that I completed in 3 hours and 55 minutes, so my goal this time around is to complete it in 3 hours and 45 minutes or less. That being said, a good friend of mine who trained hard with me for the Tough Mudder events last year, he and I are taking the mind frame that we will not compete in a Tough Mudder this year. We'll focus on more traditional road races such as 5Ks, 10Ks, halves, and full marathons. And then next year, we're going to train our asses off because we wanted to go to Vermont this year and beat that course because it beat us last year, because we felt that we could have prepared better. So next year we're going to train really hard and then go back to Vermont with the mindset that we're there to qualify for World's Toughest even though we don't have to. And then once we complete that race in Vermont next year, maybe then I'll decide whether or not I want to go ahead and participate in World's Toughest. Maybe by that time Tough Mudder headquarters will see the error of their ways and revert back to the old system of the top 5% finishers from each Tough Mudder being qualifiers. But again, I just want to take the time to say thank you for posting your video because it was well thought out. You touched upon every single negative point that I have brought up to anyone who will listen as to why this open registration is a bad idea. They've done well with adding the incentives to make it more interesting, but you could still have those same incentives for the toughest of the toughest mudders. So again, thank you for posting it, and thank you for taking the time to listen to my reply.